Welcome to another episode of Property Wealth Insights with PK. Let's dive into this. PK, you've brought some really fascinating stuff about the Marina Bay area in Singapore. It seems like there's so much happening, so much potential there. We're going to try and unpack it all, what's actually happening in the Marina Bay and CBD area, what kind of opportunities are popping up, and some of the challenges they're facing too. Hopefully, by the end of this, we'll all have a clearer picture of this dynamic landscape.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think what you've pulled together gives us a really great overview. From plans for entirely new districts to these major developers making big moves, and even the government's long term vision for the CBD, it's like a glimpse into the future of this really key urban center.
Exactly. You've got insights into things like recent land bids, these ambitious development projects, and all the discussions around how to keep the CBD vibrant and alive. It's a lot to cover, so we're going to focus on the biggest changes. These new residential areas, mixed-use developments popping up, the big players involved, and the overall strategies to ensure Marina Bay stays this thriving hub. Think of it like your in-depth briefing on the future. What's being built right now? Where do you think we should start?
I think the transformation down in Marina South is a pretty captivating place to begin. What's really striking about Marina South is the sheer ambition of the vision. Imagine a completely new 10-minute neighborhood springing up right next to Gardens by the Bay. And this isn't just about new buildings, it's about creating a self-contained community from scratch.
That's right. The material you shared mentions over 10,000 new homes planned, along with, everything you'd expect in a neighborhood: retail, offices, even hotels. But the big idea here, the thing that really matters for you listening, is this concept of a 10-minute neighborhood. It's designed so that you can get to your everyday needs, things like childcare or even a clinic, all within a short walk, just creating a super convenient and livable place from the ground up.
And woven through this entire vision is a strong commitment to sustainability. Everything built in Marina South has to meet this BCA Green Mark Platinum Super Low Energy certification, which is pretty high bar when it comes to energy efficiency.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just energy savings. It's clear they want to create a genuinely green and enjoyable environment. The plan encourages using native plant species, following this thing called NPark's Landscape Master Plan. The goal is to create these green corridors, attract wildlife, and make these pleasant shaded areas for people to walk around. They seem to be really considering the long-term quality of life down there.
And what's really revealing are the recent land bids for this area. The one that stands out is the tender for a site at Marina Gardens Lane back in June 2023. A consortium led by Kingsford Development won with a bid of, get this, $1.034 billion. And here's where it gets really interesting. That winning bid, that $1.034 billion, was a 42% higher than the next highest bid, which really highlights the uncertainty in figuring out what this land is worth back in 2023, before what we see now in the OCR and RCR prices crossing $3,000 PSF, right? It's prime real estate next to these big attractions. But it's also pretty new in terms of a fully established residential community. That difference in the land bids back then really shows the different opinions people have about the potential, the risk involved at this early stage. Prime location, right next to these famous landmarks that's still undergoing a major transformation. That winning bid is becoming One Marina Gardens, set to launch in April 2025 with 937 units.
So for someone thinking about buying or investing there, the advantages are pretty obvious. Direct access to the Marina South MRT station is a big plus. Being right next to Gardens by the Bay means incredible views. And like the report mentioned, there's that potential first-mover advantage of getting in early on a district that's about to boom.
Now, things take a bit of a turn with this other tender in February 2024 for a plot at Marina Gardens Crescent nearby. This one only got a single bid. And the URA, that's the Urban Redevelopment Authority, basically the main planning agency in Singapore, they rejected it, deemed it too low.
That's right. The bid from this group, which included Gaucoland, came in at $770.5 million. For context, this plot was actually slightly larger than the one Kingsford won. The fact that the government, through the URA, turned down the only offer really highlights how complex this all is, and maybe some growing caution in the market, even for these really prime spots. It also shows that the government has a clear expectation and vision of this area as Marina Bay changes.
Yeah, it does. So we see this interesting dynamic in the new Marina South district. But now let's shift gears and look at a major player who's already shaping the more established parts of Marina Bay. We're talking about the IOI group from Malaysia. Your research really highlights their presence there, the huge investments they've made.
Yeah. Back in 2016, they made a big splash with a top bid of 2.57 billion Singapore dollars for this prime Marina View land parcel. And if I remember right, the source you sent said this was a record at the time for a white site. And for anyone who doesn't know, a white site gives the developer more flexibility to decide what the development will be used for.
The really cool thing is that site is now becoming Central Boulevard Towers, a massive commercial development with 2 office towers and a retail podium. We're talking a huge 1.29 million square feet of grade A office space. It really emphasizes how important Marina Bay is as a commercial hub in the region.
And the IOI group didn't stop there. In 2021, they were the only bidder for another Marina View site. This one was actually triggered from the reserve list, meaning IOI had previously expressed interest.
Which, could suggest some hesitation among developers back then, probably due to, high land costs, development costs, and this uncertainty around the office and hotel sectors in the CBD.
And the second Marina View site, it's planned to be another mixed-use development, but with more focus on residential. It'll have 683 luxury homes, branded residences, and a high-end hotel. So IOI is definitely a key player shaping both the commercial and luxury residential sides of Marina Bay.
Yes, and I am looking forward to showcasing this development, called the W Residences Singapore Marina View, to my clients. Branded residences are not commonly launched in Singapore, and I believe discerning buyers will pay attention to it. Very exciting. Now, this leads us to this broader effort to revitalize the entire CBD, which of course includes Marina Bay. Singapore has been trying to make the CBD more vibrant after work hours by getting more people to actually live there.
Right. The idea is to change it from this district that mostly empties out after 5 p.m. and on weekends into this more dynamic 24/7 kind of place. About 6,100 private homes have been built in the CBD in the past 20 years, and almost 1,500 more are being built like Skywaters and Marina View. So there's definitely been progress towards that goal. Your research also talks about the impact of these property cooling measures, especially the additional buyer's stamp duty, or ABSD, which really affects foreign buyers.
Oh yeah, that 60% ABSD for non-Singaporean buyers is definitely a huge factor, and your data shows a pretty clear drop in the percentage of foreign buyers, and that's definitely had an impact on demand for some of these high-end properties.
And it's interesting, right? Because while the focus has been on attracting more residents, some people now think a bigger concern is potential shortage of prime office space in the CBD in the next few years. It seems like there aren't that many big new office developments in the pipeline.
Right. It looks like the government has shifted its focus somewhat, encouraging these decentralized office hubs in other parts of Singapore, places like Woodlands and the Jurong Lake District, and this raises a really important question about how the land in the CBD should be used.
Exactly. Should it mostly be for offices? Should it lean more towards residential, or is there some kind of ideal balance? Actually, it doesn't have to be one or the other. A good mix of uses is crucial to keep the CBD lively and productive. 24/7. They compare it to global cities like London or Manhattan.
And to actually encourage that kind of mix, the government has this initiative called the CBD Incentive Scheme. It's a really interesting strategy. Basically, it encourages owners of older office buildings in certain parts of the CBD to redevelop their properties into mixed-use projects, and the incentive is an increase in the gross plot ratio, or GPR.
For our listeners, a higher GPR means developers can build more on the same land, making these redevelopments more profitable.
And a perfect example of this scheme in action is the redevelopment of the former AXA Tower into Skywaters at 8 Shenton Way. The GPR was increased for this project, allowing for a taller mixed-use skyscraper with retail offices, a hotel, and those luxury residences we talked about.
And it's not just about building higher. Skywaters is also known for being sustainable, and its great connection to the underground pedestrian network and multiple MRT lines. And of course, we can't forget that record-breaking price for an apartment there, $6,100 per square foot for a 99-year leasehold. It really shows the potential value that can be unlocked with these kinds of redevelopments.
Definitely. But going beyond these incentives, some experts think even more innovative policy changes might be needed to truly revitalize the CBD as a residential hub.
The sources mentioned some pretty bold ideas. One is maybe lowering or even getting rid of the ABSD for foreign buyers, specifically in the CBD. The idea is to attract a more international mix of residents.
For sure. A lot of experts seem to agree that the core challenge is making the CBD a genuinely desirable place to live. And that means thinking about affordability, having those everyday amenities readily available, supermarkets, pharmacies, things like that, and creating a true sense of community. It's not just about the luxury apartments, but actually, I noticed that such amenities have been sprouting out in the CBD area in recent years. And many residents have feedback to me the excellent convenience that they enjoyed.
Right. You need the infrastructure for daily life to support a large population, but it's also important to remember that the CBD already has some big advantages. The sheer variety of restaurants being close to cultural and entertainment spots, and the amazing public transport are all huge positives. And of course, the potential for some incredible views cannot be ignored.
True. However, there's also a strong argument that the CBD should primarily stay focused on being a major office district because of its central location and how important it is for attracting these big international companies. Some people worry that not having enough prime office space could actually hurt Singapore's economy.
So it seems like the conversation is really about finding the right balance. The research you've done really highlights the need for a careful approach, maybe involving more flexible land use planning and some of these forward-thinking policy ideas. It's clearly not a simple situation.
Yeah, ultimately it seems like the goal is to strike a balance where CBD keeps thriving as a commercial hub while also becoming a more dynamic and livable mixed-use area. It's a complex challenge, but the potential benefits are pretty huge.
So what does all this mean for our listeners? The Marina Bay area is clearly in the middle of a major transformation. The Marina South development is like a chance to see a new, sustainable, incredibly well-connected community being built from the ground up. And at the same time, the existing CBD is seeing this strategic push to bring in more life, more diversity through mixed-use projects and these ongoing policy discussions.
And here's what I find really interesting. Those contrasting results we saw in the Marina Southland bids and the whole debate about the best way to use the CBD, they really show how complex and how full of opportunities this urban landscape is.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's that potential first-mover advantage in an up-and-coming area like Marina South or the long-term vision for a more vibrant 24/7 CBD, there are some really compelling stories playing out right now. This deep dive has given you a glimpse into the major developments and the strategic thinking shaping the future of Marina Bay. It's a story of growth, adaptation, and constantly trying to make the most of this incredibly valuable land. As you think about all these changes, what do you think is the biggest opportunity or the biggest challenge for Marina Bay? That's something worth thinking about, for sure.
And of course, I'm actively involved in the various project launches over here at Marina Bay. From One Marina Gardens to Residences Singapore Marina View, please reach out at 9697-1131, and I look very much forward to sharing more insights with you. Thank you for tuning in. Catch up soon.